Right. Okay, just make yourself comfortable in a chair. Not with it's not in a bit particularly sort of not with the aim of coming in straight into sort of perfect posture, but literally to feel comfortable, to feel supported. It makes the process of bringing your attention into your body a little bit smoother, a little bit more pleasurable. And so we begin to get that feeling of mind and body just quietly settling together. Getting a sort of clearer view, if you like. And it's from that perspective that we'll begin to just produce changes in the body. But to begin with, as always, starting with the tapping exercises and tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. And on the other side. And the upper part of the chest. And your belly. And next. Sitting back, and an important part of that process of settling is the physical dropping of your weight, of allowing gravity to do what it's trying to do anyway, which is to pull your body downwards. In this posture, very much a case of pulling it down into the chair, so perhaps easier to develop the sort of attitude that allows that to happen. And what we get is an idea that the support of the chair is the thing that literally helps that sense of relaxing with the pull of gravity, rather than feeling that we somehow have to strain against it. But even then, we can recognize that, you know, as we begin to say, for instance, relax the big muscles around chest and shoulders, we don't simply collapse into a kind of blob or something like that. There is still a structure that starts to reveal itself. We can begin to be aware of the shape, if you like, of the rib cage, for instance. So two things about this posture. One is it is possible to let your weight drop down to allow tightness and stiffness, resistance to fade away from at least some parts of your body. And the second is that when we do that, there is still a structure that maintains our shape. You don't suddenly, you're not like a piece of, you know, or a lump of butter that's suddenly melted completely or something like that. Now, coming back to the upright position, we want to reproduce those qualities of yielding to the pull of gravity, and at the same time working with this resilience within the body, that which maintains the structure. I often draw reference to our skeleton when I'm talking about that. It's actually more than that going on, particularly in the upright position, not so much in the reclining position. But the skeleton is certainly part of it. But there are associated tendons, ligaments, quite close to the skeleton, muscles close to the skeleton, structural muscles. And eventually, actually, there's a two-way process. Your skeleton supports your soft tissue, but the soft tissue also supports your skeleton. It's not an either-or process. So the attitude, if you like, that we want to take is one of cooperation rather than a kind of binary either one or the other. But a good starting point to develop that, to understand that is to be aware of the skeleton. But when we do this, when we allow the weight to drop, when we take a certain position, certain parts of the body, particularly muscles, but not only muscles, are loaded. So for instance, we want to tilt our upper body forwards. That puts more of our weight into our legs, and we get a response in muscle and so on from that. We get a response in our back and in the front of our body. And essentially, we want all of those things to neutralize each other. I've used the image in different circumstances of a tripod with its three legs. It's the same kind of idea, except it's probably more than three legs. But one way or another, we found ourselves being held in position, being held upright, with less and less need for a feeling of tightening or stiffening, which allows the space for movement to take place in. So then, moving carefully, turning your head, trying to find a way of moving that doesn't reverse that process, that doesn't recreate a sense of tightening or stiffening. So this leads us to an awareness of the flow, the movement through the body, of the various body fluids, and this sense of the energy, the ability to do work, to move, unrestricted. Hands in front of your shoulders. So we want to make sure as we move that we don't move too far, or that we don't move incorrectly. So with this one, for instance, the elbows are just outside. I'll move my elbows. If you watch this elbow moving here, I can go to here and here and here. And I can feel the muscles working. I can feel the joint working. I can feel the movement through that whole area of my body. It's all very smooth. If I go to here, my shoulders tighten up. If I go to here, my back's tightening and so on and so forth. The other aspect to this is that it isn't actually just that area of the shoulders. If I can get a sense of expanding through the side of my body, pushing up almost, that helps to move my elbows, and then the contraction. As my elbows go back, there's an opening in my chest, which means to bring them forward. It's not just the shoulders, it's a slight contraction in the chest. The opposite way round, as they go forwards, my back expands, and so on and so forth. And then going forwards. Once again, this is a two-way process. Reducing the tightness, the stiffness in the body makes these possible connections viable. There isn't there isn't the same level of interruption to the connectivity in the body. But using that connectivity helps us to reduce the stress of moving. Hands down to your sides, rotating your arms. And then winding around. Going back the other way. So then, tilting forwards a little bit, here we start to experience a whole body engaged in. At the same time, that focusing of our attention, that quietening of our attention is the thing that makes it possible to observe these things. And when we start to observe them, when we start to become aware of them, that's when we can bring our intention into all of this. These things are happening anyway, to a greater or lesser degree. But by bringing a degree of intentionality to the movement, we actually start to cultivate them. Whether it be the subtle mechanics of the movement, flow of energy, they're all things that can be, I would say, manipulated, that can be influenced by our minds through imagery, through understanding, ideas, through memory. Turning a little, and more of your weight going into one leg. We can note the flow of the movement when we get this correct. When we move in the right direction, when we don't move too far, we start to get that sense of flow. So when we don't have that sense of flow, we start to get clues as to what might be the problem. When we turn the other way, we already have established an idea, a sort of goal, if you like, a point that we want to reach, and that becomes part of our intention. And then going around. And then back the other way. And then step out. And on the other side. Okay, let your hands drop down. Bend them palms. Tilt forwards. Rotate your bird, fold its wings. So now a primary focus is going to be the actual movement, the exercise that we're doing, its shape, the feeling of movements within the body that are associated with particular exercise, particular stages of the exercise. maybe qualities drawn from any images associated with a particular movement. Those people who are familiar with the exercises, maybe it's just a memory of how this exercise has felt previously. And then fisherman cast net. Remember, you're not leading with your arms. Weight is moving forwards, the body tilts, your arms are pulled through. Try not to stiffen up in shoulder or your elbow, joints of your wrists and fingers. One of the things that can help with that connection in the movement is to imagine that there's a resistance. So essentially persuade our brains that we are pushing against something, moving against some kind of resistance. Hence the image of moving through water. There's a natural response to that resistance would be for our bodies to move with more of a sense of connection. If you were just, you know, I don't know, if you were just sitting down idly swinging your arm forwards and backwards, you would move in a certain way. But if you happen to be in a swimming pool doing that, then you would engage the body differently. In fitness science, they have what they call open chain and closed chain. An open chain movement with a limb is moving with only one point of connection. So, you know, here, that single point of connection would be my shoulder. Whereas if I was pushing downwards on the ground, I would have 2 points of connection. I would have a point of resistance. That's what's referred to as closed chain, as opposed to open chain. And it's been shown that we just automatically, without having to sort of discuss it with ourselves, use the body differently, closed chain situations. So you could argue that we're sort of imagining a closed chain situation, even though we're moving open chain. And then rolling the ball. So we're engaging more of the body, but there's less resistance. And that helps to just spread the effort through the body, making for, in a sense, a more efficient move. So we start to develop this quality that we call inner strength. Even without the actual physical presence of a certain level of resistance, we're moving in a stronger way, both physically and energetically. Kind of strength and inner strength isn't terribly helpful, I don't think. in a conditioning, in a resilience, might be better ways of describing it. And particularly on an energetic level, that makes a massive contribution to our well-being. The state of the energy of this whole ability to do work within your body is of primary importance in Chinese medicine. Now, change the pigeon spreads its wings. Turn your hands in, drawing apart. Strength, the flow, the harmony of our energy are things that in acupuncture and Chinese herbalism are primary focuses. To the extent that one of the prerequisites for good health in Chinese medical terms is concerned with an aspect of the body's energy called the Jing, which is sort of regarded as our constitutional energy, perhaps. And that has a very strong determining effect on our well-being. To the extent they say that when your Jing's all used up, that's when you die, speculatively. Some change into pushing wave, hands coming in, turn your hands palm forwards. More focused movement than the previous 2 or 3, perhaps. Correspondingly stronger quality about it. Chinese medicine is generally acknowledged that it's not possible to restore that constitutional energy, the Jing, the acupuncture, herbal remedies. But one of the few things that does actually encourage cultivation of the Jing is the arts of Tai Chi and Qigong. So we're doing the right thing. This time, as you come back, don't let your elbows go out. Just bring your hands down, just above your legs, rolled into a hollow fist, and forwards, rotating your arms, just letting them extend a little. A couple of things about this. One is, again, I'm just going to do this with one arm. Don't let your elbow go behind your shoulder. You lose the structural integrity if that happened. And you can imagine pushing against something like that or like that, the difference between that. Another is that your hand and forearm stay on more or less the same level. We don't do something like this and lift the arms up and then push forwards. We just let the arm extend a little bit as the weight moves forward. There's this combination, the transfer of your weight, and the extension in your elbow and your shoulder gives us the full movement. A good example, perhaps, of how using more than one part of your body and using the connections in your body can help us to create movement. If I was just doing this like that, it's more effort on the part of the arm. If I was just doing this, nothing's happening in my arms. But when I combine the two, I get quite a lot of movement. Also, this, if if you've ever tried to push, I'm sure you have, say a heavy shopping trolley in a supermarket, you don't just stand there and push with your arms because it's hard work. You sort of lean into it a little bit. Because we're then bringing in more of the body, including the body's weight and momentum, behind the arms. And then wind it out. That's one of the benefits that comes out of moving in a more connected way. Another one, I think, is just the feeling of it, to have more of that sense of having been able to gather yourself in. And feel that the movements are much more pleasurable. In many ways, there's a flow there. Some evidence to suggest that that flow will have a positive effect on things like the vagus nerve, our sympathetic nervous system. I sometimes think of this in computing terms, when defragment a computer, we just bring things into order. Or maybe sort of like apply the same thing to the room that you're in, tidy up or clean up, makes it a more pleasant environment to be in. Now changing again, come back, turn your hands in, polishing the table. Go forward, letting your spine extend, your arms extend, fingers extend, and then as your weight comes back, your weight moves you forwards, your spine lengthens, moving you forwards a little bit more, and so on and so forth. Extending out, contracting it. Coming back now. Bring your hands to the center, turn them palm up. A gentle push down through your feet and your hips creates an upward movement through your upper body. Push your arms up, and then just in a way reversing that, feeling the contraction, as though you're lifting up a ball, and then the intention here will be to push the ball down. So both directions of the movement, both parts of the movement, enhance and cultivate that sense of connection to the ground, the stability comes from that. One more time. Same thing is true. The next exercise, a little bit trickier to feel. You turn your fingers out, up, because your arms are going away from your body, you're more likely to begin to strain. This is the wild goose. So there's the image of the bird in flight. And again, that may sort of make us think about engaging the chest muscles and muscles of the upper back as well as the arms. But we want to use legs and feet in all of this as well. A different image might suit you, that you imagine you're in water, there's a ball underneath the palm of each hand. The ball floats up, and then what we want to try and do is to press each ball down into. And then this time, as your arms come down, you tilt forward slightly, so your hands go in front of your knees. Sitting back into your hips, and again, that push up, parting the clouds. But the combination of all these things helps us to move our arms up without straining in our shoulders. So it allows that sense of movement of energy flow upwards and downwards through arms and fingers. If we were to do this and sort of stiffen up, it would block that movement. So an awareness of the quality of movement that we look for is really important. Mostly, we don't actively try and move like that. We're not saying, right, I'm going to make my arms flow. This time, let the hands drop down. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So there's several factors that do get involved. We can use imagery like moving through water, moving like water to encourage our body to flow in a different way. We can make sure that we're using our body properly, that this exercise isn't lifting your arm, it's pushing the arm up by expanding through the side of your body, for instance. And that we're moving correctly to the correct position, not moving too far, not pulling our hand behind our shoulder and so on. Don't rush the switch from one side to another. And to help us with that, we're aware of the center part of our body. Now our attention will go from one side to the center, to the opposite side, our foot and our hip. And then we can begin the other side. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Let's do one more of these. And then pushing in two directions. Last time, pushing out, and this time, as you do that, extend one foot, plant the heel on the floor, making sure there's still a little bend in the knee. Ease forwards as though you're scooping water up in your arms. Your hips drop back, with your shoulders following, your arms following your shoulders, so you're throwing the water back over your head. Just scooping the sea into the sky. And then a loose fist again with both hands and grasping the tiger's ears. Your weight going back, your arms dropping down. Tilting forward, your head and shoulders going forwards and drawing your arms over. Also a little bit of movement in the chest. If I exaggerate a little bit, you see how there my chest is opening. So that also contributes to the Change sides. As we're all scooping the sea, looking at the sky. And grasping the tiger's ears. Once more. And coming back to the sitting position. Once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. And on the other side. Upper part of your chest. Your belly. And finally your legs. Good, and then pushing your heels up to just to get the muscles of your legs working a little bit more. And making circles with your knees, heels coming up again, but then the movement back into your hips. And back the other way. Okay. Now, standing. These are all qualities and aspects of posture and movement that we want to try and reproduce in the standing exercises. From a structural point of view, it's obviously a different ball game because we've no longer got the chair there for support. But the feeling of the movement is the same. So again, we have an idea of what we're looking for. So standing with your feet hip width apart to make sure your hips have good support and therefore your shoulders have good support. Wait a little bit forward, but also have an idea, have an intention that this is going to feel very similar, particularly in your upper body, to how you felt in the chair. I think your legs will probably not feel quite the same because they're taking the whole of the weight of your body. But think back to when we were transferring the weight in the chair, we were tilting forwards and backwards. How the legs felt when they were taking an increased share of the weight, and that can also help. And looking to reduce tightness and stiffness in the body, and crucially, aware too that you still have that inner structure, you still have the skeleton. And one of the things that we're aiming to be able to do is to bring our skeleton into line with the pull of gravity. I'll show you with this pole. In theory, in practice, it's a lot more difficult. In theory, I should be able to find a position for the pole. He says, looking anxiously. That means that it's so perfectly in line with the pull of gravity that I could let go and that wouldn't happen. In practice, of course, it's not going to work so easily. The end of the pole could be a bit uneven. The floor underneath my feet might be a bit uneven. So this is very theoretical, but there is the potential for you to find that kind of theoretical alignment through your body. And in some ways, it's easier than with the pole, because we're a bit more flexible than a pole. But essentially, what we want is gravity to work down through our body and arrive in our feet, not slightly forwards, because that happens, or back, or leaning over, or whatever. So everything in the body is built up right up to the top of our head, so that, for instance, the weight of our head has a free passage down through the body into the ground. Your hips drop back just a little bit, and then letting them drop down a bit more, bring your hands around, and once again pushing up, feeling your body expanding and contracting. That same flow of movement, as though we're moving through water, same sense of a harmonious, unrestricted movement is our aim here. You can begin to appreciate, hopefully, how hugely significant our awareness and our intentions are in this whole process. It's not the body on its own. It's not our energy on our own. It's not our minds on our own. It's the interaction of the three. And likewise, the benefits extend through mind, body, and energy. There's obviously a sort of physical conditioning of our body. I've already mentioned about the improvement in the flow and the strength of the energy. And one of the great outcomes of the whole practice for our minds is that this focusing of our attention can lead to a very deep sense of calmness, one that we can come back to because it's very much focused within the body. And the calmness and the stillness, but also an activity. So it's not that our brains have suddenly switched off. And that too is important, I think, important for our well-being. That a part of our attention, not the whole of our attention, a part of our attention is actively, in a way, curious about the movement. Turning your hands out. Standing version of the wild goose. Doing that rhythmic pulse, expanding and contracting. Definitely in particular parts of the body it's highlighted, but underpinning that sense of your whole body expanding and contracting. And then parting the clouds. We could even suggest that along with that physical expansion goes an expansion of our awareness. As we push up, part of our awareness is in our fingertips, sort of touching the air above us. As we drop down, part of our awareness travels down into the ground. Give your legs a shake. Change to the forward stance. So turn one foot out, keep the width of your step so your hips are still supported. Step forwards about the same length, and just begin to transfer your weight. So it's important to realize this is not mind over matter. This is not us sort of gritting our teeth, producing a sense of determination, forcing our body to do something that isn't right for it. What we're trying to do is to take these three aspects, the three legs of the tripod, and to produce something out of that. It's like if you're growing up a plant in a pot. You need the pot and the soil, you need to water the plant, you need to position it, and so on and so forth. It's not any one of those things. It's the combination of all those things being correct that gives you the outcome of the plant growing. As you move, you're pushing from the ground. So rather than straining in the upper part of your body, throwing yourself offline, more likely to keep your pelvis level, to keep this upright stance in the alignment with the pull of gravity. Then what we can start to do, you push your back knee forwards and your heel comes off the ground. You go back, you raise your front toes. As I raise my front toes, I move a little bit more. So gradually more of my weight goes into my supporting leg and my body moves its alignment. When we were going, when we were standing parallel, I talked about this being in line with the pull of gravity. What I'm trying to do here is to get to a point where that line goes down through one foot. So it's not like that, or like that, or not like that, or like that. And that means that I can begin to be better supported on one leg. And that would lead us to being able to take a step. When you go forward, put the heel down, lower the toes. When you step back, you plant the foot, put the ball down, lower the heel. Maybe if you're comfortable with this, raising the knee a little bit. But make sure that when you go to do that, you don't sort of lean over, because then you'll start to lose stability. And on the other side. First of all, transferring your weight. Raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And then you can take a few steps through, either forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the room. But making sure that you have that stable posture to enable you to do that. And again, what you might find is that you're able to just raise your leg. Oops, a little bit of a wobble there, that can happen easily. That's what happens if you don't take care enough about raising the leg. I'm going to change direction. Bring your feet down. Now, up your right foot forwards. And we can bring the upper body back into the movement, combined with the stepping. Start with your weight in your back foot. Go forwards into your front foot. Get that feeling of sinking down, and just turn and let the expansion coming up through your body push your arms out. Go back, let your hands drop down, sinking into the back foot, feel the expansion, pushing your arms out, guided by the turning in your center. Now this time, either going forwards or backwards. As you do that, you either raise your back heel as I've done, or your front toes, and you bring the foot in and you take the step. Same thing. This is dragonfly skims the water. And as before, if we're comfortable with this idea, when we bring the foot in, we can raise the knee and possibly rotate the hip. That's quite a tricky movement. So be careful with that. You could just do half of it. You could just raise the knee. So you want to keep the flow, the stability of the movement. I'm going to change direction. One more time. Dragonfly skims the water. Bring your feet parallel and just stand again for me. Keep your legs straight. Go back to your chairs. I think Tai Chi sets a high bar. And to maintain these things consistently, I think I'm not sure if anybody could ever do that. A couple of times while I was talking to you about raising the leg, I had a little wobble. I'd like to claim it was deliberate. It wasn't. These things do happen sometimes. It's partly because I'm trying to talk to you as well as doing the movement. But I didn't fall over, and I was able to come back. And I think rather than thinking that somehow we failed when something like that happens, that we should be able to stand on one leg or keep all these qualities of mind and body and energy consistent, we need to recognize that it's not that straightforward, that we're human beings, we're not robots, we're not programmed like a computer to perform in exactly the same way each time, and that there are many external factors that are going to affect us. So one of the really important lessons for me in Tai Chi has been that even though I may lose these qualities a little bit, I'm capable of coming back, resetting the balance. And that, I think, is the sort of underlying message, if you like, of this final exercise that we do. Embrace tiger, return to the mountain. Almost any activity, anything that takes us out a little bit, can compromise that quality of, however you label it. But I like the term central equilibrium, which kind of covers the whole range of mind, body, and energy being settled and centered and harmonious and rooted and so on, and so forth. But we can easily lose central equilibrium. We can lose it because it we maybe go outside and it's cold and suddenly we contract in. We may lose it because a friend comes down and gives us bad news. We may lose it because we read something in the newspaper that annoys us or upset. And 101 different things, more than 101, can sort of throw us off that equilibrium. But we have the capability of coming back. So just let your hands drop down. Feel again those fundamental qualities. Push your arms out. You may find yourself, say for instance, stiffening up in your shoulders, but let gravity draw your hips down, your shoulders down, your hands in, your elbows down, and actually just follow that pathway back down for. And then start the whole cycle over again, because we don't want to stay, we get a bit boring after a while, simply sitting there doing nothing. And one of the important elements in Tai Chi and Qigong is this principle of yin yang. And we might think of that as, say, being still, being calm would be yin. Being active and perhaps taking that risk of losing that calmness would be yang. And it's a matter of finding the balance between the two and recognizing that both are important and both feed each other when we can do these things correctly. More time. And then your hands come to rest. And just open your eyes. Thank you as always, everybody, for joining in. And as always, if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Bye for now.